What you're seeing here is a device designed to store and share time. In this dystopian future, time has become the new currency. Money no longer exists. Now everything revolves around time. Every person carries a countdown clock on their arm, displaying exactly how much life they have left. When it hits zero, they die. And just like in our world, some are luckier than others. On one side are the rich, carefree people with time to spare. On the other are the poor, for whom every second counts. Both literally and metaphorically, they live day to day. This is Will, born on the unfortunate side of this divide. But two tragic events are about to occur that will scar him so deeply, he'll attempt to destroy this unjust system. After hearing this, you'll realize this story isn't just science fiction, it's a metaphor for our own reality. For context, in this society, people are genetically modified to stop aging at 25. After reaching this age, a one-year countdown begins, forcing them to find ways to earn more time. That's why, as unbelievable as it seems, this woman is Will's mother. She's actually 50, but stopped aging decades ago. Like most in their neighborhood, Will and his mother struggle financially. Still, the young man worked overtime to get her something special for her birthday, coming up in just 2 days when she returns from work. Little does he know this will become one of his life's most traumatic events. Prices rise daily. Their factory wages barely cover daily survival. To make matters worse, salaries are frozen, filling Will with growing frustration. But he's about to meet a man who will change everything. After work, Will visits a bar where his heavy-drinking best friend points out something strange. A man at the counter who's been buying drinks for everyone all night. His name is Henry, and he possesses over a century of time, a shocking contrast to the bar's regulars, who rarely have more than 2 or 3 days on their clocks. Will notices the dangerous attention Henry is drawing and tries to warn him, but Henry seems indifferent to his own safety. Just as Will insists they leave, a group violently bursts in, the Time Mafia, here to steal Henry's years. Everyone flees, except Will. Good-hearted Will tries to help. The Mafia boss demands Henry fight for his time. Terrified, Henry agrees, but asks for 1 second to compose himself, rushing to the bathroom to vomit from nerves. Will intercepts him and helps him escape through the back door. The boss spots them and gives chase. They run through the neighborhood until reaching an abandoned building, where they finally find safety. There, the wealthy man reveals his truth. He's 105 years old, from a place called New Greenwich, the richest zone where people have more time than they could ever spend. They're practically immortal. Henry explains he no longer wants to live. His mind is exhausted. That's why he risked his life at the bar. Will initially thinks this is absurd, but Henry makes a profound point. What gives life meaning is death. Knowing our time is limited makes us live with purpose and urgency. Brevity creates intensity. Immortality, like Henry's situation, removes all meaning from existence, exactly what happened to him. This is why he's about to make a terrible decision. He explains there's actually enough time for everyone to live decent lives, but it's disastrously distributed, held by only a few. It's an unjust system where many must die, so a few can live forever. Before sleeping, Henry asks Will, "What would you do if you had all this time?" Will responds, "I'd stop watching the clock. I wouldn't waste a single second." Realizing Will is the right person, Henry waits until morning, when Will is still asleep, then transfers nearly all his time to him. He walks to a bridge to wait for his clock to reach zero. When Will wakes and sees his new fortune, he looks out the window, spotting Henry in the distance. He understands immediately. Will sprints to stop him, but arrives just as Henry's countdown hits zero. He's too late. Now all this time comes with terrible consequences for Will. Security cameras captured everything. And in this society, there are timekeepers, essentially police who maintain order and keep the system running. In reality, they could be interpreted as the equivalent of a country's central bank. When security cameras capture the incident, Raymond, leader of the timekeepers, arrives to investigate the crime scene. He assumes someone robbed Henry of all his time and ended his life. While not certain it was theft, the neighborhood's poverty and violence make this the most logical conclusion, so he begins hunting for the culprit. Meanwhile, Will, now a millionaire, goes to tell his best friend everything that happened. When he arrives at his friend's house, the wife greets him holding their 1-year-old baby. His friend is shocked, but warns Will he must leave immediately, because in this violent neighborhood, he's in grave danger. The young man understands, and before leaving, gifts his best friend 10 years of time. Will doesn't know is that he's making a terrible mistake. Instead of using this time to improve his life, his friend will ultimately use it to throw his life away. After this, Will goes to wait for his mother to share the incredible news. After her 2-day work shift, the woman is finally heading home. As she's about to board the bus that takes her back, the driver informs her the fare increased that very day. The trip costs 2 hours, but she only has 90 minutes left. Will's mother begs the driver. The walk home takes 2 hours, making it impossible for her to survive. The driver coldly responds, "Then you'd better run." The doors slam shut as the bus drives away. The woman runs desperately, trying to flag down other buses, even pleading with strangers for time. But no one helps. Her clock keeps ticking down. Back home, Will waits joyfully with flowers, ready to share his life-changing news. But when his mother doesn't step off the bus, he realizes something's terribly wrong. He drops the flowers and sprints to find her. The cruelest irony unfolds. Both now race toward each other on the same avenue. Will possesses all the time in the world to give her, while his mother has mere seconds remaining. They spot each other in the distance. Both break into desperate runs. Their hands stretch out, fingers nearly touching. Then her clock hits 0. She collapses dead in his arms. No last words. No final gift of time. Will, who finally has everything he ever lacked, has now lost the only thing that truly mattered. After this tragic event, Will remembers Henry's words, "For some to be immortal, others must die." Consumed by vengeance against the system, he hails a taxi to New Greenwich to find a way to change things. It's at this moment we witness the brutal control mechanisms of this cruel reality. This society is divided into time zones. To move between zones, you must pay a toll. As you advance, the quality of life and opportunities improve, but the price escalates dramatically. Just to leave the first time zone, Will must pay 1 full month, while most people in his neighborhood don't possess 3 days in their accounts, making escape mathematically impossible. This mirrors reality perfectly. Essentials that could improve lives, better nutrition, safe housing, quality education, or areas with opportunities, become unaffordable for those who need them most, trapping them indefinitely. Will progresses through time zones until reaching the final one, where the crossing costs over a year. The driver asks Will's intentions here, to which he responds, "I'm going to take everything they have." While this is happening, Raymond and the timekeepers investigate further what occurred on the bridge. Through the surveillance cameras, they see that Will was present at the crime scene, so even without sufficient evidence, they incriminate him and go after him. Meanwhile, Will arrives at New Greenwich, gets out of the car, and starts running. This behavior is normal in the neighborhood he comes from, since his time is limited. But here, everyone is rich, so he can afford to do things calmly. In the distance, a girl sees him running. She is Sylvia, daughter of one of the richest men in the society, and with whom he will end up having a quite interesting relationship. He enters the hotel and asks for the most expensive room available. When he wakes up, the first thing he does is check his timer. He used to do this every day since it was a constant concern, but now he no longer has to worry about that. This analogy applies exactly the same to money in the real world. For many, the lack of money becomes the only consuming thought, a need so basic that its absence suffocates any other thought or dream. Just like someone who doesn't know if they'll see dawn due to lack of time, Those without resources live with the uncertainty of not knowing if they'll have a plate of food tomorrow. In other words, if you're drowning, the only thing you can think about is breathing. Will eats breakfast while Sylvia watches him from afar. This woman feels a strong attraction towards him, and soon their paths will cross. The young man asks a waitress about a building, and the girl tells him it's a casino. After a voluntary donation, an employee lets him pass and guides him to a poker table where there's no betting limit. Will sits down and starts talking with everyone, but especially with one man. He is Philip, one of the richest men in the world. He didn't make his fortune through sweat and hard work. He simply comes from a family of bankers and moneylenders, a business where having money makes you more money. And in fact, this makes perfect sense, since in real life, many very powerful people have made their fortune this way. Through accumulated generational wealth, the bets continue and the amount increases more and more. Meanwhile, we see Sylvia enter the room, sit at the table, and make eye contact with Will, who recognizes her at that moment. Since he saw her just a few hours ago, Philip reveals to Will his absurd way of thinking. He tells him that for him, the extreme time difference between social classes is fine, that it's natural and part of Darwinian capitalism, meaning the survival of the fittest applied to economic matters, which in this case is the same as your lifetime, a system where inequality is normalized, where the fittest, in quotes, have more time, and those who don't literally die. Philip is a man extremely blinded by his privilege, and doesn't understand that everything he has wasn't even achieved by him. But soon, Will give him a dose of reality to make him understand. The final cards are revealed. The bet's close, and the pot rises to 1,100 years. However, Will shows his timer displaying he only has 30 seconds left. Both show their cards, and Will wins the bet. With just 3 seconds left before dying, he places his hand on the device again and gets his 1,100 years back. This leaves everyone impressed, but especially Sylvia. Even more importantly, he earns Philip's respect, who reveals that Sylvia is his daughter. The girl invites Will to a party the next day, and he accepts. What the girl doesn't know is that she's about to make a serious mistake. However, the man has no way to get to the party, so before going, he stops to buy a humble sports car. He arrives at the party, greets the family, and talks extensively with Sylvia. Everything was flowing perfectly, and little by little, he managed to blend in among them. However, the timekeepers managed to track him and are now after him. While Will was chatting, the timekeepers burst into the gathering. Will knows they're coming for him. However, he believes he did nothing wrong, so he's relatively calm. They separate him from everyone and take him to a private room to interrogate and question him. Will explains everything, but Raymond doesn't believe him, so he takes nearly all his time away, leaving him with just 2 hours to process and file him. Raymond leaves, but Will has an objective in mind, and nothing will stop him, so he frees himself from the guards, goes down the stairs and grabs Sylvia. He sneaks through the place, grabs a couple of weapons, gets in his car, and escapes with the girl. The timekeepers chase him, but after some maneuvers, he manages to hide under a bridge, and thus loses them all. Will looks at his watch and notices he doesn't have much time left, so he asks the girl for some, but she tells him to get lost. She realized Will really is from the lower neighborhoods, and now her image of him has completely changed. They drive until dawn. However, Will gets distracted and falls into a spike trap, causing the car to flip and leaving both unconscious. This trap wasn't set by the timekeepers, but by the mafia, who are looking for Will to get revenge. They see his watch and assume he'll be dead when he wakes up, so they leave him. However, they steal all of Sylvia's time, leaving her with just 30 minutes. And after this, the mobsters leave. However, this won't be the last time they meet. When they wake up, Sylvia panics. She had never before had so little time remaining. She was accustomed to a life of complete comfort and zero worries. Nevertheless, she now finds herself in the same situation as the vast majority of people in this society, which will open her eyes to reality. This level of scarcity and constant stress is normal in Will's daily existence, so facing desperation, Sylvia reluctantly shares some of her remaining time with him. and they run to save their lives. As their first option, Will tries turning to his best friend, the same man he gifted a decade of time to just days earlier. Yet when they reach his house, his friend's wife opens the door in tears because something terrible has occurred. With the time Will gifted his friend, he went to drown his sorrows at the bar and ultimately died from alcohol poisoning, with 9 years still remaining on his clock. This time, Will is consumed by overwhelming guilt, but with only minutes left to live, they must move quickly. Sylvia's diamond earrings become their last hope. They rush to pawn them, but the shop owner, recognizing their desperate situation, offers a laughably small sum for the jewels. With no alternatives, they're forced to accept. Will gives his entire share to Sylvia and guides her to a payphone to call her father. Philip answers after the first ring. Will demands to speak with the timekeeper, delivering his ultimatum. If you want Sylvia back alive, deposit 1,000 years into the slums community fund by sunrise. For Philip, this amount is pocket change, yet still he pauses to consider. He knows this might just be the beginning of this man's worst nightmare, the collapse of the system. Thanks to this phone call, Raymond successfully tracks Will's location and sets out after him. Meanwhile, Will takes Sylvia to his home, where he gives her fresh clothes and shares stories about his family. He tells her his mother essentially died from being poor and that his father perished in a fighting match, which was his profession. The man was exceptionally skilled and always won. Sylvia asks how he managed that, and Will reveals the secret. In this society, there exists a form of arm wrestling duel. These contests involve flipping your opponent's forearm to steal their time. Will explains that the key is to give your rival the initial advantage. Then, at the very last second when they're distracted checking their remaining time, you seize the moment to reverse the match. The next morning, Will wakes up early to check if Philip transferred the time, but apparently he didn't care. Will gives up and tells the girl she should leave. He takes her down the street to a public phone so she can call her father and arrange pickup. He gives her a gun for protection, and just before leaving, Sylvia returns and kisses him. After this, she makes the call to her father, yelling and reproaching him for not even trying to rescue her. Will waits for her at a distance. However, as this happens, Raymond approaches from behind and points his gun at Will. Sylvia notices, screams, fires, and Raymond falls to the ground. Will disarms him, and upon approaching, sees he doesn't have much time left. Knowing his colleagues will take too long to arrive, Will decides to save his life by giving him some of his own time. After this, they get in the car and flee. To secure more time and a non-police vehicle, Will and Sylvia steal a car and borrow some time from the female passenger. This car has a television. Through it, they see they've now become wanted fugitives, with arrest warrants issued against them. They then go to a quieter place where they gradually get to know each other better and prepare to execute their plan. Immediately after, the couple makes their first move to destabilize the system. They hijack a truck and rob a bank, but they don't just rob it. They practically destroy it and loot the vault, stealing dozens of time capsules. When finished, they tell bystanders to go in and take what they want. Will then leaves a capsule containing decades of time for his deceased friend's widow, donates time to street children, and fills the charity box so everyone can take some. This infuriates Raymond, as there's now time circulating that shouldn't be in these zones, time that will eventually bring grave consequences. But Will and Sylvia's actions have also enraged the mafia, because now the neighborhood residents have more time and can better defend themselves, which is ruining their criminal operations. As a result, both factions will attempt to put an end to this Robin Hood couple. This mirrors exactly what happens in real life. Power always seeks to perpetuate itself. In this case, Will and Sylvia are challenging a system that has benefited certain groups for generations: the wealthy, the timekeepers, and the mafia. And these groups will respond accordingly, not to defend a moral or just system, but to protect a system that has favored them. Will and Sylvia were sharing intimate moments of love and affection in a hotel room when suddenly they heard noise outside. It was Raymond, coming to put an end to their rebellion. Will reacted instantly, and they attempted to escape. They smashed through the windows, jumped out onto the street, and began running. But Raymond wasn't far behind. He pursued them relentlessly. His determination was so fierce that he even opened fire on them. Yet the young couple managed to escape. To ensure their safety, the next morning, they went to another hotel where they purchased every single room and left a generous tip for the receptionist. However, a mafia member spotted them entering and immediately recognized them, rushing to report their whereabouts. As night fell, Will and Sylvia had a heartfelt conversation. Through their words, we could see how Sylvia's mindset had undergone a radical transformation. Leaving her privileged bubble and witnessing the harsh reality endured by thousands had opened her eyes. She had once supported the unjust system they lived in. It seemed right to me, she admitted, because I was on the benefiting side of it, but she'd come to understand through first-hand experience that for some to live well, many others must suffer. It was at this moment that the mafia burst in violently. They held Will at gunpoint and captured Sylvia. The mafia boss wanted to end Will's life, but rather than executing him coldly, he chose something more entertaining. He challenged Will to a time duel. Will knew that whether he won or lost, he would likely die. Yet he had an ace up his sleeve, the very trick he'd taught Sylvia days earlier. The fight began, with the boss taking an early lead. Will tried to turn things around, but lacked sufficient strength, and his timer began dropping rapidly. The boss, believing victory was his, glanced at his own timer. In that moment of distraction, Will reversed their positions. Tension filled the air. As Will realized, they'd never let him leave alive. He grabbed a hidden weapon and eliminated all the guards before finally winning the duel. The couple fled to a rooftop to collect themselves, but there they faced a heartbreaking realization. The government is raising prices on everything. This way, no matter how much time they give to the poor, it will never be enough. Instead of doing good, they're making things worse. They realize that if they want to create unprecedented change, they need to do something never done before. They need to inject 1 million years directly into the base of the pyramid. And fortunately, they know someone who might have that much. Sylvia's father. They return to New Greenwich, to the very place where Sylvia's father is being escorted by numerous armed guards. Sylvia approaches calmly from behind, startling everyone. She announces she wants to surrender and speak with her father. At that moment, Will, who had disguised himself as one of them, draws his weapon and takes Philip hostage, forcing him to order his guards to lower their weapons. Will and Sylvia escort Philip into the elevator and proceed to the main office where the vault is located. They try as password Charles Darwin's birth date, the father of evolutionary theory, through natural selection. Remember, this man is fanatical about survival of the fittest etiology. Applied to economics, this makes little sense, since no one starts from the same position, making it an unfair competition. They input the password, and the vault opens. Inside lies a single capsule containing 1 million years. 1 million years in the hands of one man. While in Will's neighborhood, people die daily from time scarcity. This mirrors reality perfectly. In our world, the wealthiest 1% holds about 43% of global wealth, money they couldn't spend in 10 lifetimes. These statistics aren't fabricated. They come from global wealth studies conducted by Credit Suisse, a financial services firm. Philip tries to stop them, warning that releasing such quantity into the wrong zone would paralyze the system. Exactly what Will intends. Before they leave, the man delivers a final warning. Whatever you do, nothing will change, because everyone wants to live forever. Everyone believes they could be immortal, despite all evidence to the contrary. Everyone thinks they'll be the exception. Now let me rephrase this in terms of our reality. Whatever you do, nothing will change, because everyone wants to be rich. Everyone believes they can climb the social ladder, despite all evidence proving otherwise. Everyone believes they'll be the exception. This evidence is called the Social Mobility Index, and in Latin American countries, it's extremely low. Studies estimate that in countries like Mexico or Colombia, escaping poverty can take anywhere from 6 to 11 generations on average. Of course, there are exceptions to the rule, but it's precisely because of these exceptions that this illusion persists. The illusion that anyone can make it. We often make the mistake of romanticizing exceptions, claiming that if one person succeeded, then everyone else can too. And let me be clear, I'm not trying to diminish anyone's hard work. On the contrary, I believe we should all aspire to be exceptions, because we have no other choice. However, the fact that success stories remain exceptions highlights the core problem. They shouldn't be exceptions. They should be the norm. As long as this illusion persists, the system will continue perpetuating itself, surviving on people's hope. To conclude, Philip states, "But for a few to live forever, many must die." This phrase is extremely powerful because it conceals a monumental truth. I'll explain why at the end. In the timekeeper's headquarters, alarms begin blaring. Raymond sees that 1 million years have left New Greenwich and realizes this could mean the end. He springs into action to prevent this massive amount of time from reaching the poor neighborhoods. Raymond spots the couple and the chase begins. However, Will and Sylvia gain the lead, heading toward their final destination, Will's home district. Just as they're about to arrive, Raymond rams their vehicle. He must stop them at all costs. Will barely escapes the wreck when a young girl approaches. Will looks at her and hands over the capsule containing the 1,000,000 years, instructing her to deposit it in the charity box. As word spreads about available time, all the residents start running toward it. Will and Sylvia use the chaos to evade Raymond, who continues pursuing them relentlessly while fleeing both the commotion and Raymond. The time begins being distributed among everyone, yet the timekeeper remains determined to capture them. So his squad takes their vehicle and gives chase. When they catch up, Raymond exits his car and intercepts the pair. Here, Raymond reveals he was actually born in a poor neighborhood, but managed to escape, now dedicating himself to guarding time. "I didn't create the system," he says, "but I ensure it keeps functioning." Will counters by revealing neither he nor Sylvia have much time left, prompting Raymond to check his own clock, only to discover his time has expired. Raymond has just fallen victim to the very system he so fiercely defended. With their time running out, and still far from the populated area, Will spots Raymond's abandoned car and gets an idea. They have only 20 seconds remaining, so they sprint desperately toward the vehicle to transfer some time. Will is faster, reaching it first. He takes some time and races back to Sylvia, who now has just 7 seconds left. As he gets close enough, he leaps and successfully saves her life. Meanwhile, in New Greenwich, the entire system begins collapsing. The poor district citizens now possess ample time. They no longer need to work just to survive, enabling them to seek better opportunities elsewhere. But what did Phil mean by, "for a few to live forever, many must die"? To understand, we need to rephrase it slightly. Rather than, "for a few to live forever, many must die," let's adapt it to our reality. In other words, for a few to be rich, many must remain poor. This film transcends mere fiction to become a somber yet truthful reminder. Every passing second is a fragment of life slipping through our fingers. Time we paradoxically sacrifice in pursuit of money. The currency in this story isn't just numbers in a bank account, but the very beats of a human heart. The cruel irony lies in how we spend our time chasing material wealth through tasks and worries that rarely align with what truly matters. The real dilemma, therefore, isn't about how much money we accumulate, but how much of our precious time we're willing to surrender in exchange. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Every like and subscription helps this channel grow. Want me to analyze a specific movie, series, or story? Let me know in the comments.